on like it always has and always will.
Between on and always on, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
For years, we've been hearing about IoT.
Ooh, look, my cat just woke up. Let me put the lights on for her.
It's time to get real. This is about big industry-changing things, complex things. It's about a network of things that includes this, and these, and that thing, and whatever this is. You've got more data than you can shake a stick at, and that stick generates data too. This is industrial-strength IoT. It connects turbines to power grids, pipeline operations to refineries, first responders to life-saving devices. It's a big challenge, and it makes a difference to our lives. So how do you meet it head-on? Not like this. Like this. Only Cisco can securely connect tens of thousands of assets at the farthest edge of your network to the heart of your business, no matter the scale. With security built in, not bolted on, and a flexible network to grow as your business expands. Now, IT's happy, ops are happy, innovation is accelerated, business is transformed, lives are improved. Between big ideas and big results, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
This is the data center, and it deals with demand. Demand that's coming from anywhere, any place, any device. Billions of things, millions of apps, clouds of all kinds, demands for capacity, for analytics, for real-time insights, giving customers exactly what they want. And it's all landing right here. But that's okay, because you're not just waiting for it. You've got ACI Anywhere, a remote control that gives you the power to answer any need, choose any cloud, manage and secure any demand, right from here. So tell them to bring it on. You're ready, anytime, anywhere. Cisco ACI goes anywhere. Cisco, the bridge to possible. The power is here. And here. But also here. And definitely here. Anywhere you need the full force and power of your infrastructure, hyper-converged. It's like having thousands of data centers, wherever you need them, powering applications anywhere they live, but managed from the cloud. So you can automate everything from here. Cisco HyperFlex goes anywhere. Cisco, the bridge to possible. National Instruments had a predicament. Bandwidth demands were on the increase. And while growth is good, their IT budget wasn't keeping pace. Not so good. IT needed to deliver more bandwidth to offices around the world while keeping spending under control. That's not so easy. Suddenly, the company that helps engineers accelerate innovation found themselves needing help. Oh, and it needs to be fast, flexible, affordable, and secure too. A tall order, but by no means an impossible one. Not with the decision to turn to us, the people who invented the network in the first place. Using a Cisco SD-WAN solution in Cisco services, we massively increased their bandwidth. Where their budget held them back, we propelled them forward. Now, most companies would be delighted right there, but we went further. Network deployments are faster than ever. And where their old network generated problem tickets faster than anyone could count, the number of WAN-related tickets has decreased 70% in the past year. All of this to prove that between those frozen processes of yours and free-flowing productivity, there's a bridge. Tell us what you're imagining, and we will build the bridge to get you there.
Stel je voor, de eerste zijde uit China. Kruiden uit Indië. Thee, rubber, suiker. Alle rijkdom van de wereld kwamen hier, in deze plaats.
For over 500 years, the lifeblood of commerce has flowed in and out of the port of Rotterdam. Today, it's on a scale and at a speed never before imagined. Until now.
There is a lot at stake. We have vessels entering the dangerous cargo. We have very large container carriers. If one gets stuck in the entrance, the entire harbor is jammed. Consequences, safety-wise and economically, are immense if something goes wrong. The logistics are easy, but to make the puzzle work, that is complicated.
Making the puzzle work is a network of sensors spread across the port's 41 square miles, providing terabits of data. 200 calculations a minute. Wind, tides, currents, and visibility to help guide 130,000 ships a year and protect 468 million tons of cargo.
In my function, in my job, the security is the main thing. If we have the right data and the reliability is proven, we can predict what the situation will be 3, 4, 5 hours in advance, and we can plan with that. After careful evaluation and planning, everything is possible in Rotterdam, and that's the thing we are proud of.
The confidence to run Europe's largest port, and one company delivers all that sensor data safely, delivers all that data securely. Between the storied past and a modern efficiency the Dutch would call
Ongelooflijk.
there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible. Here's a question. In a world where data goes everywhere, where does that put your data center? At the moment, trends are born, greeting customers with every detail they need. At the point where all your clouds meet and share, but also on watch, securing everything and everyone. In an uncentered world, you need a data center that extends to every branch, every device, every cloud, everywhere. The Cisco data center goes everywhere your data is. Between data everywhere and exactly where you need it, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
There is something unique about a baby's cry. Like no other sound, it stirs our instinct to nurture and protect. Unfortunately, those cries sometimes go unheard. Because in some neonatal wards in Uganda, there isn't enough equipment or staff. Now those cries can be heard with the help of a wearable monitor that displays critical information for each baby, enabling nurses to immediately respond with the proper care. This life-saving technology was developed by Neopenda, a medical device company serving emerging markets and underserved people. Cisco's support helped Neopenda further develop the technology that connects its devices. This is one more example of how Cisco empowers social entrepreneurs to use innovative technology to make the world better. Between a baby's cry and a nurse's care, there's a bridge.
Cisco, the bridge to possible.
The Ellen Show is the #1 daytime talk show in America. By far, the biggest thing we do all year is our Mother's Day event. It's so much fun, and our fans just love it. We spend a lot of time aligning the show with brands that want to be a part of the Ellen experience.
Hey guys! Hey New York! Hi! Ellen. There were a bunch of moms-to-be all over the country who tried to get tickets, but they could not get tickets.
We're usually working on a really tight schedule. The faster we can launch or join meetings, the better.
Hi. I am going to use Cisco video technology to surprise them. I don't want to surprise the baby out of you, but surprise!
Some of us are in LA, some of us are in New York. There's an enormous amount of collaboration that goes on between us. And it really doesn't matter if we're on a laptop in our office or on the lot.
We're back, and so far no one in the audience has gone into labor, but we're just getting started.
Because we don't always have things nailed down until the last minute, communication becomes a really big deal. Being able to share, tweak, and review Microsoft Office documents within WebEx Teams and actually see those changes as they're being made, that's huge. We do hundreds of integrations every year, so we've gotten to the point where if we weren't using WebEx Teams, it would just slow the whole process down. With Cisco WebEx Teams, we know this is going to be the best Mother's Day show ever.
Between teamwork and the biggest show of the year,
Be kind to one another. Happy Mother's Day!
there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Every day, every night, everywhere. People are living on the streets. We see it. We all know it's a problem. But what can we do? In Brisbane, Australia, two young mates decided to do something. They would start small. They decided not to call them homeless. They would call them friends. Then, they outfitted a van with a washer, dryer and a shower and hit the streets of Brisbane to wash their friends' clothes. Orange Sky was born. One van quickly became 2, then 4, then 20. The operation, staff, logistics needed to scale and quickly. So Orange Sky found a partner. Cisco tailored a Meraki network that can grow as they grow. Intuitive dashboards at the head office and robust Wi-Fi in every vehicle let Orange Sky monitor vans and onboard devices remotely via the cloud. Cisco WebEx connects leaders in real time with staff and volunteers, whose energy and enthusiasm is essential to the model's success. What happened? Something wonderful. While friends waited for their clothes to wash and dry, they talked. A simple connection. Joining a community, perhaps for the first time in years. If one load of laundry can do that, who knows what's possible? Between cleaning clothes and creating a community, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
When mankind took its first steps on the moon, the images were captured with a lens made by Zeiss. When precision is in question, in manufacturing, science, medicine, anything, the answer, accurate to 200 billionths of a meter, is provided by Zeiss. Getting it right. Getting it precisely right. For nearly 2 centuries, Zeiss has set the standard for industrial precision and optic excellence. Looking forward, looking further, and innovating to get there. Now, technology is pushing us faster than ever toward a more connected world. Can Zeiss lead the way? They're already there. Zeiss has partnered with Cisco. Innovation and precision are now online. A team from Cisco Customer Experience working with Zeiss has designed an innovative IoT strategy, setting a new standard for Zeiss-connected data. Cisco Kinetic enables Zeiss to securely gather more information than ever, putting it to use in ways never before imagined, predicting performance and protecting uptime. Cisco WebEx brings Zeiss technicians and industrial customers together at a moment's notice, enabling innovation on the fly. The result? More advanced products, happier consumers, increased revenues. What they say is true. They don't make them like they used to. At companies using Zeiss, partnered with Cisco, they make them better. Between precision and the pace of business, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
I was running a plumbing business. It was great. We prospered and things were well. And then I got hurt and the spiral began.
Every night across America, 500,000 people go to sleep homeless.
When you're in the street, you are invisible. You're out there, nobody sees you.
You have to make hard choices, really hard choices.
As unimaginable as that is, even more are at risk of becoming homeless.
There are homeless from every profession. Plumbers, electricians, doctors, financiers, a quantum physicist.
Which is why we're committed to help put a roof over the heads of those who need one most. And for those at risk, helping them keep theirs.
With all the homeless people out there, we were chosen for an apartment. It's better than the lottery. This is a place to live.
Together, let's be the bridge to a place called home.
I don't know you, but I love you for what you've done and how you helped me.
Technology. There's never been more potential at your fingertips. But technology is only half the picture. Introducing Cisco Customer Experience. We're here to help you get the most out of your technology, because behind the billions of connections, we believe there needs to be a relationship. Someone who can position you for continuous innovation. Someone who can help you design a roadmap for your next 5 weeks or your next 5 years. Someone who can be with you from whiteboard to reality. We'll help you transform not just your technology, but your business. We understand that your customers expect a lot of you, and we're here to help you deliver. Innovating, creating, delivering, transforming, with the right people and the right technology together. This is Cisco Customer Experience. Between technology and where it can take you, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible. Technology often comes down to a choice. This or that. Do you need 5G or Wi-Fi 6? Mobility or security? Should you be in the cloud or a data center? Do you need this gen or next? The answer to all these questions is yes. Now you don't have to choose, because there's one network that's ready for anything. It's called intent-based networking, and it's only from Cisco. A system built for Wi-Fi 6? Yes. And ready for 5G? Yes. And the numerous machine languages of the IoT? Yes. What about security and threat detection? VR, AR, AI?
The answer to your question is yes.
Intent-based networking from Cisco. Wireless first, cloud-driven, data optimized. Between what's now and what's next, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible. When mankind took its first steps on the moon, the images were captured with a lens made by Zeiss. When precision is in question, in manufacturing, science, medicine, anything, the answer, accurate to 200 billionths of a meter, is provided by Zeiss. Getting it right. Getting it precisely right. For nearly 2 centuries, Zeiss has set the standard for industrial precision and optic excellence. Looking forward, looking further, and innovating to get there. Now, technology is pushing us faster than ever toward a more connected world. Can Zeiss lead the way? They're already there. Zeiss has partnered with Cisco. Innovation and precision are now online. A team from Cisco Customer Experience working with Zeiss has designed an innovative IoT strategy, setting a new standard for Zeiss connected data. Cisco Kinetic enables Zeiss to securely gather more information than ever, putting it to use in ways never before imagined, predicting performance and protecting uptime. Cisco WebEx brings Zeiss technicians and industrial customers together at a moment's notice, enabling innovation on the fly. The result? More advanced products, happier consumers, increased revenues. What they say is true. They don't make them like they used to. At companies using Zeiss, partnered with Cisco, they make them better. Between precision and the pace of business, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to this awesome Networking.Next event. And this event is primarily for us to announce the publication and key findings of our very first 2020 Networking Trends Report. And this has been an extensive research that Cisco did over the last year or so, talking to a lot of customers across the globe, CIOs and practitioners, to understand the key initiatives around cloud, mobile, IoT, and cybersecurity projects, and what are the implications from a networking standpoint. But we've also brought in the broader context of the social trends, the business trends, and the technology trends impacting the network. So we got a really exciting panel of speakers with us today. We got Cisco CTOs, we got the Chief Strategy Officer from Cisco, we got a futurist, and we also got some analysts and customers to talk about this. So we have 3 key segments. The very first segment really deep dives into the macro trends around social, business, and technology. The second segment really now deep dives into the networking aspect of how these trends impact the network and what can you do to prepare for that. And the final segment focuses on what do the trends mean from an IT operations perspective, what does it mean from reskilling your IT talent. So a lot of exciting stuff over the next 60 minutes, and without any further ado, I would like to hand it over to Will Townsend, Senior Analyst at Moore Insights and Strategy, and as well as a contributor for Forbes. So Will, take it away.
Thanks, Prashant. Welcome. Before we get started on our first segment, I'd like my esteemed panel members to introduce themselves.
Sure. My name is Radha Mistry. I run the foresight practice for a company called Autodesk, and oftentimes I'm called a futurist, and I wish that meant that I get to look into a crystal ball and kind of see what's happening, but it doesn't. But really, I spend a lot of my time exploring the implications of emerging technologies and how that's going to impact the way that we design and make things in the future, and the wider global trends that are really going to affect business and society.
Anuj Kapoor, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Cisco.
All right, thanks, you two. So to kind of frame the conversation before we get going, mobility is growing by leaps and bounds, obviously. Users are requiring a consistent experience across networks, whether that's Wi-Fi, LTE, 4G, and eventually 5G. But also at the same time, these macro trends are going to also affect the future of networking, such as what Prashant mentioned, business implications, technology and social. So I'd like to start with you, Radha. What do you feel like is the single most important trend, macro trend, that'll affect the future of networking?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you speak to a lot of companies these days, every single company is talking about how do you leverage data and turn that into insights to drive real-time decision-making and help to automate operations. And I think that's one of the leading trends. We're also seeing a lot of changes in, I think networking in general is going to drive new business ecosystems. And I think that in itself is going to open up a lot of doors for new skills and new roles, which we have yet to kind of really explore the impact of.
Excellent, excellent. Anuj, your thoughts?
So, if you look at the history of networking, I think what's been true is with every change in air interface, and we're seeing one with Wi-Fi 6, we're going to see one with 5G, there's been a step function change in consumer expectations of what they believe needs to happen. So whether it's connectivity, whether it's bandwidth, whether it's security, whether it's resiliency. And this is going to be true for 5G and Wi-Fi 6 as well. So the number of devices that come online, the need to secure them, the need to manage them, and the need to ensure consistent experience across both devices that are connected to users and devices that are connected to things, I think is going to be the problem statement of the hour. And as Radha said, it will require a automation framework that is very different to what we have historically believed is appropriate in prior standards.
And I know Cisco is working on helping ensure that consistency as you move from network to network when you look at what you're doing with respect to the service provider side of the business as well, because that transition between Wi-Fi and 5G will have to be transparent from my perspective over time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think increasingly what customers are going to expect is that they have connectivity independent of the underlying network and independent of the underlying provider.
And it just has to work, and be reliable.
And consistency.
Yeah. Right, absolutely. To dive a little bit deeper into technology, you're the chief strategist for Cisco. AI is a huge technology that's really affecting lots of sectors of the technology industry, and certainly it is with respect to networking. But from my perspective as an analyst, there's a lot of whitewashing out there. There are a lot of companies that claim they have the best algorithms or they have the best approach to that. We all know that AI is only as good as the data that you train against it. And certainly Cisco has a very deep and broad data lake just based on the number of years you've been doing this. But Anuj, I'd like to start with you. So from your perspective, what is really the most impactful thing that AI can bring to the future of networking?
Absolutely. So what's changed is that the cost of compute, cost of storage, and cost of networking are finally at a point that you can harness the true value of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And as you said, ultimately it does come down to the data. So to make AI successful, the volume and diversity of data sets that are used to effectively train the models and to implement the models has to be at a level that the outcome is worthwhile. Otherwise, you just go back to traditional methods of computational, of analysis, and of inference. So when we take a step back and look at where, at least at Cisco, we have implemented AI at scale, two areas come to mind. The first is security. Right? For the last 10 years, we have harnessed, as you said, data from within the enterprise and outside the enterprise to be able to do two things and two things only, which is drive time to detection low and drive the complexity of remediation to being as simple as it is. I think as you look at the networking domain, fundamentally to the point around consistent user experience and consistent operational benefits, network to network, device to device, user to user, I think the ability to drive root cause analysis tied to what is going wrong and to be able to remediate as quickly as possible, encapsulated in terms of user experience, I think will be critical. And having that volume and diversity of data set to effectively inform that, I think is going to be a key advantage.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, and I think just when we start talking about AI and we talk about privacy and security, organizations that are really driving this forward, like Cisco, I think one of the conversations that needs to happen is around policy. One of the things we see oftentimes is you have the rate of technological advancement, which is a very steep curve up, and then you have the rate of policy adoption and development, which is right about here, right? And that space in between those two slopes is kind of a really hairy area. And so I think that's going to be probably one of the biggest drivers, but could be one of the greatest impediments as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We were just talking about security, right? And we live in a highly connected world, right? It's just amazing. It's only going to continue with advances like Wi-Fi 6, and we talked about 5G a second ago. But there's a huge challenge there, right, with security. And all you have to do is look at almost the weekly data breaches that you hear about. And so, the question I've got for the two of you, I'd love to get your input on, and Anuj, we'll start with you first. How do businesses balance this whole notion of ensuring secure networks and data privacy, but at the same time drive innovation?
Yeah, that is actually the problem statement of the hour, unfortunately. And the conversation we have with our CIO customers is every instinct you have to help you become more agile. Every instinct you have to help you transform also comes with it a certain risk profile that you probably didn't internalize at the outset. So this need to drive balance is exactly what our guidance to our customers has been. I think what becomes critical in an environment where increasingly the IT estate is becoming a lot more heterogeneous, a lot more multi-vendor, and your sources of risk are just compounding with every surface area that you expand to for very valid business reasons, is the consistency of the operational model. What you can't have is 10 different interfaces to manage 100 different environments. What you need is commonality, both in terms of the visibility you drive, the insights you drive from that visibility, and hopefully over time, the action that over time becomes a lot more automated.
That whole notion of a single pane of glass to manage all of that activity, correct?
Yeah, as best possible a single pane of glass, because that has obviously been the hope and desire of a lot of customers for many technology transitions. And I think what we have guided our customers to is this notion of consistency in the pane of glass, independent of who provides that.
Right, because the reality is it's a multi-vendor world, right? So you're going to have challenges, getting to that nirvana over time. But that should be the overarching goal for sure.
That should be the end point, and you work backwards from that.
And Radha, your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is trust, transparency, and consistency, right? And I think you watch the headlines today and you can see tons of examples, and we don't need to name them, but tons of examples of companies who have kind of like let their customers down.
Right.
And part of that is you weren't really brought along the narrative as they were making changes, as they were making key decisions. And the really great thing about data these days and the connectivity that we have is we can get this inside view into what's happening and why. And if we can build up that narrative and that trust with our customers as partners, I think that just helps to kind of drive the success of the technologies that we're trying to implement.
Yeah. And a lot of that has been organic, right? I mean, no fault to these companies, but they get into these situations and then it just it kind of grows out of hand, right?
And there's unintended consequences, and I think part of it is, your data is only as good as the data you have.
Right.
The insights are only as good as the data you get. And you need more information and more data to train your algorithms. And so how do you kind of maintain, it's kind of a self-perpetuating prophecy, right? So I think that, as you kind of said, the connectivity, the consistency, and the transparency is key in instances like this.
I would agree as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your insights, Radha and Anuj. It's been fascinating to spend some time with you to kind of understand those macro trends with business, technology, and social. After a short break, we're going to go to our second session, where we're going to go a little bit deeper into the overall technology that's going to power the future of networking. Welcome back. In our first session, we talked about those macro trends, business, social, and technology that have the ability to affect the future of networking. In our second session, we're going to talk with two CTOs with Cisco about the deeper technologies that are going to impact the future of networking as well. Before we get into that, though, let's do some introductions. Vijay, start with you.
Sure. So I'm Vijay. I'm the CTO for cloud at Cisco. So there are portfolio decisions that I help make around cloud products, such as network orchestration and management and cloud orchestration and management. But in addition to that, I'm also responsible for figuring out how our partnerships with the cloud providers go, and also where Cisco in of itself needs to go when it comes to cloud.
Welcome. And John?
Hi, I'm John Apostolopoulos. I'm the CTO for Enterprise Networking Business. We cover everything from wired and wireless to WAN. And like, for example, for buildings like this, what is the network that you use in buildings like this? And I work very closely with my colleagues Vijay and other CTOs across Cisco to come up with the solutions that can help solve our customer problems.
Great. Well, welcome, gentlemen. So let's open it up with a term that's getting a lot of play in the networking world today, intent-based networking. And this is something that Cisco started embarking on, I believe, in June of 2017. So, John, I'd love to start with you. I know you've got a visual you'd like to sketch here for the for the audience. But I think, there's some confusion about what really is intent-based networking. There are lots of people that claim that they provide a solution, but it's not always complete. So help enlighten us on all of that.
Sure, yeah. This is a topic I'm very excited about. And what I'm going to show now is my conceptual view of what intent-based networking is. And I like this view because by showing this, it's something which I believe everybody who sees it can understand it, and then they can remember it too. And understanding, I think, is really important because there is a lot of ambiguity here, as you mentioned. So let's say over here. So what do we have? First of all, we have a user at the top who has an intent. That's what they want to do. On bottom here, we have the infrastructure. These are the things many of you are already very familiar with. The wireless APs, the switches, the routers, the compute and storage. Okay, that's the infrastructure. In between the two of these, the three key functional components which provide intent-based networking. The first one is what I call translation. And so what do we mean by translation? Well, first of all, what do we mean by intent? And intent is something that a human can understand, a human description of what they want to do. For example, I want to set up a TP session, a telepresence session with Will and Vjoy tomorrow at 10 a.m. That's something which a human can describe. It's easy for all of us to understand. And that needs to be translated into what are the network and security policies with the infrastructure needs to automate. What are those network and security policies? For example, the first thing we want is a high-definition video session. The second thing we want is, for example, end-to-end quality of service over the Wi-Fi network, over the campus network, over the WAN, so forth. The third thing is, hey, we want to protect it. We want authentication. We want encryption. In addition, during the session, we want to monitor the quality of experience and see, hey, is it providing a great quality of experience? If yes, awesome. If not, why not? How can we fix it? And finally, at the end, we want to be able to tear down all those things once the session ends. Okay? So as you can see, the intent is something that is easy for human to understand, but it gets mapped to a variety of relatively involved network and security policies. What happens next, though, is those security policies are activated, or here I call it activation, on the network. So this takes these policies and basically turns them on the network. Okay, you can also think of this as automation. The reason we don't call it automation is because all three components I'll describe here, they're all automated. So that term would not distinguish what's happening here. So you can think about this maybe as like intelligent automation, because what we try to do is we take these policies and for the given network, and the given load on the network, traffic and so forth, we try to figure out what's the best way to operate those policies to maximize the quality of experience that people get, as well as the security. Now, you don't just want to activate it on the network, you want to also check, hey, is the network running the way it should? And that's the goal of assurance. So the goal of assurance is to gather information, monitor the network, gather information, gather insights in terms of how the network's operating, and provide feedback to the user. If the network's operating great, awesome, we're all done. If there's a problem, what is the problem? What's the root cause? How can we fix it? And then we provide those fixes to the user. If they want to implement those fixes, they say activate. They get activated on the network. Then we once again monitor to see, is the network operating as intended? If yes, we're done. If no, what's the next problem? It would keep on going. So this feedback loop we have here is very, very valuable. Now, to your question about SDN, what SDN usually did was it did part of this step here, this automation step. And it usually was focused on automations like configuration and day 0, day 1 sort of changes to the network. What intent-based networking adds is this translation, where you can have a high-level description of what you want to do, the intent, and then it gets translated, plus a lot of automation here, intelligent automation. And then this important assurance step, where we use feedback to check to see if the network's operating as intended, and then if there are any problems, we fix it.
Well, so before we get Vjoy's input, a follow-up question for you, John. You talked about intelligent automation. Yes. So in our first session with Anuj and Radha, we talked about AI and machine learning, potential impact at a very, very high level. If you could just take a few minutes and take us through where you really believe AI and machine learning is going to really impact this whole notion of intent-based networking.
Okay, yes, I'll be happy to. Because this is an area we care a lot about and we've been investing quite a bit in for quite a while. First of all, let me define AI. AI is the study, in essence, of how we can take machines and we can make them behave in an intelligent way similar to humans. Okay? And within AI, the many subfields. The subfields that we care about in this context are things like machine learning, machine reasoning, natural language processing, operations research, signal processing, and various forms of data analytics. And we use all those different techniques in different places here to improve the operation of this. As an example, let me use a star here to show everywhere we have AI. So first of all, we have it in the translation step, because here we need to take the intent, and we need to understand what the intent really is. And there we use natural language processing to be able to do it. So we take this and we translate it to the network and security policies. Now also in activation, there's a whole bunch of different optimizations that are done. Often you could do these optimizations via operations research type approaches, but sometimes that's too complex to do. And then we use various forms of machine learning and other techniques to do it in a low complexity manner. For example, how can we choose the lowest latency paths in the network to provide improved interactivity with the applications and better quality of experience for the user? That's a very simple example of some of the work done here. Now, a big place we use a lot of it is in assurance. You see, with assurance, what you want to do is, first of all, you want to know, is the network behaving the way it should be? So then you have to understand, what is the normal operation of a network? And is there a problem? And this is where things such as machine learning come to play, because machine learning helps us identify patterns, helps us identify anomalies, and that's how we can identify if there's a problem. Now, once we know a problem exists, you actually want to solve the problem, right? And that's where machine reasoning comes in, because machine reasoning helps apply the expert knowledge which humans and so forth have developed over the years to try to pinpoint what is the problem, what is the root cause of the problem, and therefore how we can fix it.
Right.
So what happens is AI comes into play in all three of these key areas for intent-based networking.
Awesome. Thank you, John. So I know, Vijay, your lens is very multi-cloud focused within Cisco. So I'd love to get your impressions on how that sort of translates into what John just took us through.
Sure. So let me take a step back, and I think John commented on that a little bit. But if you think about SDN and how we started out, it was a very narrow definition. It was basically control data separation and let's make the box as thin as possible and put everything else in software. And that was like a decade ago. And I think, to me, that's a very, very narrow definition, and it applies to a certain set of folks. If you really think about SDN, it's all about ensuring that your network behaves as a single system.
Sure.
And intent-based networking is the only way to tackle that problem. So you want to make sure that the networking resources are fungible, and you have a software layer that says, this is how I want the networking resources to behave. And I think intent-based networking does that, where you define an intent, make it very, very formal, and then go through the loop that John described. Now, all of us are very familiar with the seminal car parking problem called, dude, where's my car? What John has described here is with SDN and IBN primarily. You can think about, dude, where's my packet? Where's my flow? Where's my assurance? All of those things in a network as a single box way.
Sure.
There is another problem that's coming up, which is, dude, where's my workload? So if you think about that infrastructure box that's at the bottom, it's no longer just an on-prem infrastructure. You've got SaaS offerings, you've got multiple clouds. You truly have a multi-cloud world. I don't think there is any argument at this point in our journey which says we don't have a multi-cloud world. Multi-cloud is here to stay. And every developer, when they're building something, they are dealing with a situation where the workloads, where the services are actually sitting in multiple clouds, on-prem or otherwise. So they are going to basically take a database, shard it globally, and make it such that one shard can sit on AWS, the other shard can sit on GCP or Azure. A truly distributed, sharded, multi-cloud database. For an application developer, that's awesome. They don't need to care about where it's sitting. For the networking people, think about what you just created. You created a situation where you now have to plumb all of these things together in a very intent-driven manner. So to me, IBM, the next step for IBM is taking that infrastructure layer and think of it in terms of multi-cloud and making it painless and seamless.
So the next movie should be Dude, Where's My Cloud?
Where's my cloud?
Great. Well, let's shift a little bit and let's talk about edge. And love to get both of your opinions on, like, data is being created at an astronomical rate, right? And and I know many companies like Cisco are putting those compute resources at the network edge for latency purposes, all of these sort of things. Let's start, Vijay, with you. Where do you see really the edge impacting the future of networking?
So that's a great question, and I think we need to first start with what is the edge.
Sure.
I think edge means different things to different people. We've seen all manners of definition of how big or small an edge could be. There's a far edge where it could be half a rack or maybe a couple of servers.
Sure.
There could be maybe a couple of racks and in some cases even a mini data center sized installation. So edge has various flavors. So what I would say in general is what's happening is the agility and velocity that cloud development brings to applications and in the data center is being stretched all the way from the data center to the far edge and everything in between. The other thing that's happening is the constructs and the software and the mechanisms that you use to build applications are the same constructs that are being used to build networks. So whether you are using containers or serverless that sit within the data center, the same constructs are applicable on edge compute. The same constructs are applicable on the far edge. And people are starting to think of it in those terms. So people are thinking about control user plane separation, so CUPS, and how much of the data plane or user plane sits where the control plane sits. And to some of these edge locations, like, again, edge compute, far edge locations, I think technologies like serverless make a huge amount of sense because they are built for event-driven computations, and these locations are resource trapped. And so what you'll find is over time, the way we build applications and the way we consume applications and the way we build networks are going to merge.
Sure.
And edge compute is going to help us get that.
Sure. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think Vijay already hit it really nicely because the edge is actually, it means different things to different people. And historically, there have been challenges. Well, historically, there have only been a small number of places that you've actually been able to do compute. Now what happens with Moore's Law and so forth, we can actually have significant compute in many different parts of the network. Even the wireless access points and the switches and routers can have pretty heavy-duty compute if it makes sense. And with the advancements in software management and orchestration and lifecycle management, you actually can deploy and run AI and other sorts of analytics and other sorts of processes you want at the edge in all these different places. So now this is opening up a lot of opportunities. And for some use cases, it really makes sense to do it at the edge. And it makes sense to do it at this. Once again, edge can mean different things, but it could be, hey, for this application, we want to do it at the wireless AP, or we want to do it at the router at the edge of the network, or we want to do it in the cloud. So for different applications, the different places we want to do it. Let me view it a slightly different way. In the olden days where, maybe 20 years ago, when processing the edge became especially popular with the web taken off and so forth, with content delivery networks and so forth. Then the focus was on things like lower latency, scalability, reduced bandwidth, reliability, so forth. There are a variety of additional things happening now. First of all, there's some applications like multi-user AR, VR in the future where you don't have the latency to get things that far, and you need to do it especially close. And then privacy. Privacy is as you know, it's a very big deal. And one of the ways to ensure privacy is to make sure the data never leaves, let's say, the local on-prem environment.
Sure.
So that's another reason why I think edge-based compute will be especially important in the future.
Great, great. I agree with that. We're almost out of time, so we're going to kind of move into a lightning round. And so I'll start with you, John. So tell us, like, if you were to pick one word, the biggest potential impact from a technology perspective for the future of networking, and at the same time, the biggest challenge.
I see. Well, for our customers, one of the places they'll have the biggest impact is visibility. I know that sounds really simple, but we've wanted to have visibility for for decades, essentially. And we just haven't, because it's been really complicated. Now we're able to finally get that sort of visibility with a controller managed network and with intent-based networking. And because of having that visibility, you can do various optimizations on the network to improve quality of experience. You can also tell if the network's operating the right way and fix problems. So what happens is having that visibility is foundational for much better performance and much better reliability of the networks. And I think that's going to help our customers on a day-to-day basis in the very near future.
Bijoy, let's have you close this out.
Sure. So I think there are two questions there. So one is, where do I see networking evolving, and let's say for the next decade, where is it going? And second thing is the challenge, which I'll throw back to John if there's time. But I think in terms of where networking is headed, I think putting formalism in place, modeling of the network, intent-based networking, I think for the aggregate physical layer makes a ton of sense. And bringing in AI, I think it's going to take us there. I think there is a different frontier evolving as well. And I think what's happening is we've dealt with the network as an aggregate layer, but now with applications talking to applications across multi-cloud, we need to rethink how a vertical application thinks about networking. And so we're going to see a lot of simplification at that layer in how we do networking. We can't bring the old concepts all the way up to that layer. In terms of the challenge, I feel that the skill set and the mix of networking people in our community is not a Cisco statement, it's actually a community statement. That's the biggest challenge that we have. Because I think the diversity problem is there. We're doing better, but it's still there. And I think attracting the right skill level and the right kind of people is a problem. And I think we need to work on that, because 5 years from now, at least I know that I'll be close to retirement. I don't know about John. He's closer to being in his early 20s, but I think we need to fix that. And I think as a community, we need to do that.
Bijoy, your comment on the reskilling of the workforce is a perfect segue to our next session. But I want to thank you again, gentlemen, for your time. Very insightful. John, loved the diagram there on intent-based networking, and Bijoy, your perspective on the multi-cloud. So with that, we're going to move to that third session, where we're going to talk about how the macro trends we discussed in the first segment, along with these technologies, will affect the future of the workforce and operations in the enterprise. In our last session, we talked about technology and the impact on networking. In this final session, we're going to talk about how those macro trends, business, social, and technology, along with that deep dive technology, is going to affect the future of the workplace. Before we get started, though, I'd like to start with some introductions. We've met Rada already, but let's start with Eugene.
So G, Memo, Guillermo.
That's right.
So Guillermo Diaz, I'm the Senior Vice President of what we're calling Customer Transformation, really helping our customers transform in ways that we've learned along the way of 20 years of running Cisco IT and being CIO, now helping customers drive their transformation.
Welcome. Susie?
I'm Susie Wee. I'm the Senior Vice President and CTO of Cisco DevNet. DevNet is Cisco's developer program and developer community. And what we're doing is helping our whole community build up the software skill set so they can use our APIs and make the most of automation and AI.
Welcome. Welcome. Rich?
And I'm Rich Plain. I'm the CTO for customer experience function inside Cisco.
Great. Well, thank you again for your participation. Kind of wanted to start things off with a little portend to a movie that I like, The Terminator, right? And automation is becoming more and more accepted as a means of making networks more intelligent and removing some of the redundancies around the management of these networks. But there is a fear, right? Possibly that jobs could be eliminated. When I think about the Terminator movies, Skynet has become aware, right? So it's that fear, maybe unfounded fear of letting go, right? And so I'm curious, Rada, you're a futurist. Should IT professionals be concerned about loss of jobs?
I mean, the short answer is no. And I think if we look back at other, I'm going to call them technological revolutions, there are often some jobs that are lost, but the really great thing is this technological advancement brings on new roles and new jobs and new skills, right? And so I'm seeing this a lot in construction and in manufacturing, where we have concepts and applications like a configurable microfactory or a connected ecosystem of construction sites. And what that means is there are all of these new services and all of these new business cases that require people and require roles. So I don't think that this fear around, robots are going to take over our jobs and automation is going to destroy everything. I think that's a little bit of an oversimplified kind of fear. I think the real story there is there are going to be new roles, and we just need to kind of continue to be curious and do what we're really good at as humans, which is to learn and kind of drive forward.
Makes perfect sense. I'll open it up to the panel here. Any further insights?
Yeah. Well, I think it's fascinating to look at the parallels to the industries that Radha was just talking about, and then if we take a look at what's happening in the networking industry. So with the new technologies, the intent-based network, the ability to gather telemetry, get insights, make decisions with a full feedback loop, everything there, that changes the tools that people can use to do their networking. But you still want someone who understands networking, to build out these mission-critical networks. So the question is, how can the people who have the expertise use the new tools that they have, and then AI, it could be like big and scary, or it can be simple. It can be spell check. It can be autocorrect of words. These are just things that you use every day. So if we get our networkers able to, basically learn to use these automation tools and these AI tools, then they can actually accomplish using all the capabilities of the network.
And there are degrees of automation as well, right? You don't have to go to full automation. You can still have the easy button and be able to have that easy button and push it, right? So, I mean, customers, depending on their journey, they can kind of, gradually kind of, wade into the deep end of the pool.
It's the same thing. Like when you're doing automation, you can do walk, run, fly. Like walk, just gather insights. Let me see what's going on. Right? Then run, start to push some controls and policies out into the network. And then fly, you're doing that full DevOps loop where you're actually looking, getting insights, pushing out controls in this full continuous feedback cycle. So you need to get there.
Yeah, and I think we as networkers, I'm at my core, I'm a network guy. And I think what we've had to learn is, what Susie said is right. Is I used to hug the routers, right? We call them router huggers, and then we
Cisco has beautiful hardware.
We love that. We love that. We tattoo our CCIEs on our shoulder, right?
And your certifications, right?
No, we do. But really, it's about what. Going back to what are the skills that I need for the future, and getting the mindset shift of our folks to be able to go, yes, you're running the network now, but what if you could actually virtualize compute and storage and application server and and because that's where the business is going. When you click on the app to hit Angry Birds or one of your favorite apps and it doesn't work, you get angry. But everything behind that is basically infrastructure, is the network. So that needs to just work. And all of the skills, all the programmability, you need to learn that and where we're going. So you're not going to be out of a job. Your job actually expands and gets better.
That's a great segue for a question we'll have in a few minutes. But Rich, any final thoughts as we close out?
Just to close out, I think there's more jobs created actually, because you're still going to have that functional knowledge of the network, and that's such an important aspect, be able to define things in software. But now you're going to get software architecture models that transcend just the networking space into new business models that are emerging that require the network to be successful. So I think both dimensions start happening: software architecture, software programmable skills, and then that business knowledge that lets us take this network in places we never imagined we'd go before.
Yeah, and we're talking about software, and I think that's what's brought sexy back to networking, to quote Justin Timberlake. And so that's a nice segue into the next question that I wanted to pose to the panel, and it's around programmability. And Cisco's got a rich heritage here. When you look at what you do with custom silicon, when you look at your router solutions and how they're upgradable via software, to SD-WAN and that sort of thing. And just overall, like Susie, what you're doing within DevNet and really driving the whole mantra around programmability, because that's going to bring a level of flexibility and agility to an organization, and it allow you to do things much more succinctly and easier than you could just in a completely hardware-focused world, right? It's also multi-vendor, and so you got to embrace those open APIs and that sort of thing. So I'd love to start with you from a programmability standpoint. How do you really see that affecting the future of networking?
Yeah, so I think that it's really critical. So what happens is there's the way that people have been doing networking for the last couple decades, right? And it was based on the technologies that we've built. But now there's, again, an entirely new capability because it's programmable and because you can use software. So it doesn't mean that every networker has to become a coder, but they need to understand the new set of tools that's there to really more efficiently and intelligently run your network. So again, it's just using software tools in a very simple way to get your networking things done.
Yeah. Jay, I want to toss it to you because you have a lot of experience working with customers. So what Susie just laid out, how is that really translated in the real world in your experience with customers?
Well, and if you look at even ourselves, we are customer zero. So using our own example, but I see it with all of our customers. They're all trying to automate and they're all trying to transform. And the question I ask is why? Right. Do you really understand why? And do you understand the tools that are out there? Like Susie just mentioned, you historically looked at a tool set from an infrastructure perspective. But if you had the skill sets to get closer to the business acumen, to understand why are we transforming? Why do I have to heat my house more efficiently? You ask those questions of yourself. Why are you not asking it for your business? Right. So if you actually flipped your role and you put yourself in the shoes of the business, then you would ask yourself, am I automating the right things? Sure. Or am I making
or for the sake of automation?
Or am I making bad stuff go faster? Yeah. So if I can, I use a different word for that, but but looking at it from, if I'm putting myself in the business's shoes, and I'm, making that more efficient, I can actually put these tools together in a programmable way to help the business go faster for the right things. And I think it's a shift. It's a shift in our mindset as well.
Radha, there's a parallel to this in our first session. What are your thoughts around this?
No, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is really kind of to build on what you were saying, finding where the value is and then asking who is it for, because oftentimes I think the reason that there's such kind of fear and apprehension around automation is human beings don't always see themselves in the narrative. Right. And as the companies that are really driving the technology forward and building out those stories and engaging with customers firsthand, getting that story straight and helping our customers see themselves in, I love the way you laid out the kind of the path forward just now. That's so important for leadership to be doing, because it's not just about kind of gaining the skills, it's also about kind of helping people to come up on what is the mindset we need to have and bringing those two things together in alignment.
And sorry, just adding one more bit to connect the dot is how do I go about doing it on Monday? So I hear you and I get it. Yeah. I get the mindset, but how do I go take the steps to start on Monday? This is what we're talking about in my team, is helping the customers understand what to do on Monday. Sure.
And I love that you're thinking about that, because this is a challenge we see all the time, is we talk about these really shiny 10-year futures. We don't always do the best job of creating that bridge forward. And I just love that the leadership here is really doing that in tangible ways, it sounds like.
Rich, bring us home. Be our closer again.
Yeah, closer on this one. So I'm going to take a little slight twist, because I think you think about what's happening with software in the network space. You now can have a general purpose platform, which is common at the operating system and the processor level, that can scale to the infinite. And you can now design things fit for purpose through software versus having to do it in hardware. And so that changes the dynamic significantly, because that same device can be changed to be fit for purpose for a big workload or for a smaller workload, and can be designed that way architecturally.
This can be really challenging, though, right? I mean, it's sort of a brave new world here, and sandboxes and open APIs and all of this. It's for a lot of traditional network operators, this is new stuff, right? And G, you touched on this. It's how do they find those skill sets, right? And it's one thing to identify what you need, from a skill up perspective, but where do you go to go get it, right? I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge. So I'd like to kind of pose this to the team, and Susie, you're doing a lot of great stuff with DevNet, and you're making it super simple and easy. But like, what are, number one, like, what are those necessary skills that these new operators need, and how do they get them? So maybe Susie, we'll start with you there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the skills are actually at many levels. So it's certainly talking to the business, understanding business problems, and then being able to understand your customers and translate that into your area of expertise, what you know about the infrastructure, how to run it with reliability, security, performance, and everything that's needed there. But at the base of it, it is software, right? Yeah. It's a software system. So getting that expertise it's scary, right? But it's critical that you get that expertise. So at developer.cisco.com, for DevNet, we have a whole set of resources really aimed at teaching network professionals about software. Right. So they can take learning labs. There's actually a place at developer.cisco.com/start now so that they can get started with the right learning labs to learn about software in networking terms that they can use today. You're right, like with sandboxes, you want to automate your network, where do you play with that? Right. Well, we have Network Kit that you can test it safely. So use our DevNet sandbox to reserve Kit and get going with that. But the other thing that we just announced is that there's a new set of Cisco certifications that are Cisco DevNet certifications. And what we did was we've worked very closely with all of the infrastructure and tooling and everything that was built out with our Cisco certification program, our CCNAs, CCNPs, and CCIEs, and extended it to software with Cisco DevNet certifications at the associate, professional, and coming soon expert levels. Yeah. And kind of the key there is that they can use the same structure that they've used to learn about networking to also learn about software for networking and automation and programmability.
And really making it easy,
So now I need to get a different tattoo on this side for DevNet.
That's right, get your other
get the other one. But I do think it's also a cultural shift, right? It's a cultural shift for us, as we've always been operators of the infrastructure or the data center, and now it's like we're actually operating the environment. Right. It's the technology environment that is now running. Well, it's now running our businesses. Every business, this is my perspective, is now dependent on technology, and they're shifting toward digital, and technology's at the core. But how do I then, as an operator, as a network operator, tell the story? So part of the other skill set is, how do I get that business acumen to take these components and then be able to show the value through a story and through the metrics? It says, yes, we went from this 26 steps and 8 weeks to 4 clicks and 8 minutes. Right. And here's the value. That's the power is being able to show the technology side, but also getting that business acumen to be able to tell the story and get closer to the business. So they go, hey, why would I go anywhere else? Boom, that's my group.
Awesome, awesome. Rich?
So the fortunate thing inside this industry, we've only had infrastructure support business process automation on top of it for about 30 years now. So just leaning across the aisle to the people who've been doing that work and learning how they were able to take business processes and automate those in such a way that they could actually report their financials accurately, using things like the notion of dev, test, and prod. Gee, what a concept. Roll forward, roll back. Right. Simulation automation, automated test routines, all the things that we can pick up from our colleagues that have been on the business side of IT, and just adopting those practices that help drive the networkers faster.
Yeah.
And I think another key part of that is that there are new jobs in this world because of the new technology, and kind of as in Radha's industries as well, which is that now there's DevOps. And then the question is, who's going to lead DevOps?
Right.
There's DevSecOps, right? So who's going to be the DevOps for security? Who's going to take those roles? It can actually be networkers who raise up to get the software skill set, to learn the breadth of, of some amount of security. Like, who better to take those roles? But people need to, kind of grab that training. An IoT architect, like as companies are transforming and digitizing their workflows and, bringing manufacturing plants to digitization, then the IoT architect is a new role, which is connecting networking, connecting manufacturing equipment, gathering intelligence, getting business insights. And all of that is at the fingertips of our networkers if they embrace the new tools in front of them.
And during the break, Radha, you and I were talking about how this is going to create, there's sort of a continuum, right? So you're going to have some jobs that were probably pretty mundane that will eventually be sort of, evolve away. But then you're going to have kind of a new set of like supervised, human
machine teams.
Exactly. And then completely new opportunities that, hey, as an operator, maybe I wasn't even thinking about or aware of. I'd love to hear you expand on that a little bit.
No, I mean, I think, and I think you touched on this just now, but it's really, like we said before, there are all of these new services and kind of business ecosystems that are going to exist, right? So we can't just kind of put the technology out there and say, here, go with it.
Sure.
So you're going to need people who are already very well, very fluent, very well versed in the technology itself, who can kind of come into these new environments and new contexts and apply their existing skills in a new context.
Sure.
And so that's why I always say it's not that you're going to lose jobs, you might just find yourself in a new setting.
Sure.
And that has so much value in this future that we're talking about.
Yeah. Lots of opportunity. So in closing, final query, and I'd love for each of you to provide your insight and feedback on this, but there's just so many challenges, right? Skill up, finding the right fit, whatever. And I'd love to hear from, again, each of you on this. Like, what is the single biggest challenge that each of you think will be facing, the future of the enterprise operations and the workforce of the future? Radha, let's start with you.
I think there's two things. One is, trust in the system, so that I know that if I click this thing, it's going to happen every single time. Consistency and trust, right? And the second thing is very much that friction between having the mindset and the cultural setup and the infrastructure, and also providing the support to upskill and have the skill sets to kind of fully leverage and take advantage of the new technologies. And if we can, that mindset skill set piece is critical.
I like that. Yeah. We were talking about that as well. Love it. G?
Yeah, I've had the chance to go around the world and speak to customers, large audiences, and give me one word that describes the biggest inhibitor to your transformation. And that word always is culture.
Right.
And so it's, as long as it goes my way, then we're doing it the right way, right?
Because I have ownership in it,
Yeah, but I think it's the mindset and it's the skill set alignment.
Sure.
It's about driving a culture of making sure that we're all getting a great experience, that we're driving empowerment so that we can do the automation, that we can do the right things. And then a culture of continuous learning is like, what is the education that we want to provide to our folks, right?
Sure.
So I think culture is really critical.
Awesome. Susie?
Well, and mine is further along the line of what they both said, but I won't copy it exactly. But it's about the person, and it's about the person and will they put themselves into this new job?
Right.
Or will you keep doing networking, the thing that you've been paid to be good at and that you were paid to be an expert at, and keep doing it the same way?
Right.
Like, will you break up to the next level and know, hey, there's this new set of jobs available to me, right? I need to learn something new, and I can get to an entirely new level, but I need to step up to it. Like, oh, I could lead DevOps. I could lead DevSecOps. I could be an IoT architect. I can solve business problems. Like, in going around the world, I was in Jamaica, and I spoke to some IT folks over there. And
how do I get that?
Join DevNet. And what was interesting is I love our networkers. Like, our networkers are amazing. They you can't just goof around and be a networker. Like, you have to be very serious. You have to learn new things. You operate at a top level. So there's a lot that people learn. and they're trying to figure out, how do I get my career to the next level?
Sure.
I'm really good at doing networking. I'm really good at doing IT. I want to solve a business problem. And then this guy was like, you know what? I'm in charge of just running the network.
Yeah.
Someone else got in charge of the mobile app to transform our gaming business.
Sure.
Actually, the IT guy could be running the mobile app.
Right.
Because what happens is you need to take all of your systems, interface them with other systems. You need to hold data securely. You need to connect everything, get up to the mobile app that's viewed as business critical, that's the program that the CEO was watching over.
Right.
These worlds can be put together, and that can come from IT if you step up to view yourself in that job.
Absolutely. Now, Rich is our closer, but before we go to Rich, I had one comment, Susie, on what you were just talking about. I think proof is in the pudding, and proof is in the numbers. And the one thing I'm impressed with your organization are the number of developers that are participating. Is it 500,000 now?
Yeah, we crossed over 500,000 developers, which is amazing.
That's unbelievable.
You know?
What do you attest? Yeah. So what do you attest that to? Is it your infectious energy? Is it your team? Because you've got a team of rock stars as well. But what I believe it is, it's like you're providing the tool sets and you're making it easy for these individuals to develop on Cisco and Meraki gear.
Thank you. Yeah, what we did was I think that really what happens is we have an amazing community. So these networkers around the world are truly amazing people. Mm-hmm. And the problem that we've had, with software, automation, everything there is they haven't had a path in their language to get them to that next step.
Sure.
And all we did was give them the tools in their language geared for them to say, you know what, software is for you. And here's how you can learn in your own language. We didn't know if they were going to step into it because we knew it was and you've been with us on our journey, Will.
Yeah.
We'll host a developer conference. Will they come? And then they came. And so as they discovered it, they came in, they found a path. They were brave. They said, I've been great at networking. I don't know anything about software. I'm not going to be as good at that as I am at networking unless I get started. They got started, and now they're amazing, right, at combining networking with software.
You gave them what to do on Monday.
But they did it.
Yeah.
They did it. It's really just that they've already had it in them. We just gave them the tools, and they're running.
To kind of enable that success. So it's a great story, All right, our closer,
A perfect
Rich.
segue, because my topic is going to be something we've been dogging us for about 15 years, which is STEM. Right?
Sure.
We just don't have enough people coming up through science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to field it. And we talked about in this forum, this is multiple nations, multiple business sectors that never had this kind of capability before. And so 500,000 is just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
We really have to find a way.
This transcends. It's global. It transcends industry.
And the speed is coming at us. I've been watching these minor revolutions as technologies become more and more competent. I look at my grandkids and how adept they are at using their mobile devices. So this is a very fast wave that's going to come at us. 500,000 people that are tied to our community. We need probably a tenfold that Monday morning.
Thanks again, panelists, for all the insights. It was a very stimulating conversation. That wraps up the sessions. And now I want to hand it back over to my buddy Prashant to take us home. Prashant?
Thank you, Will. And thanks again. This has been really, really exciting and engaging for us here. And it's been very, very insightful. Hope you folks found it as insightful as we did here in the audience out here. But we barely scratched the surface. There's a lot of exciting findings that we got from our survey, talking to CIOs and practitioners across the globe. So your only call to action is to go download our networking trends report and access our interactive content. With that, thank you for watching.